Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Get out of the 101. Promoter 101.
Alex Viscasil, Live Nation Canada, and I'm on Promoter 101.
You've got T101 in the morning with Steiny and the Pierce.
That's right, Steiny. We're joined today by one of the coolest cats in Nashville, Mr. Braeden Rountree, talking about the amazing run that he's having with Kane Brown, Granger Smith, and the Marcus King Band.
And AKA Heath is going to turn the tables on us. And Luke will be back with the news of the week.
Hi, it's Kim Badir with City of Tacoma Venues and Events, appearing on Promoter 101. Glad to represent all Canadians everywhere, particularly those who have landed in the U.S. of A.
In case you've missed any of our past episodes, don't worry, we got you covered. www.promoter101.net, and you can check out episode 79.
Episode 79 was quite the doozy. It featured a great interview from Entourage Talent's president, Wayne Forte, talking about the early days of the business and his current success with Tedeschi Trucks Band.
C3 Concerts Tim Sweetwood discusses the massive business of festivals.
And WME's Henry Glasscock, a.k.a. the Crystal Pistol, turned the tables on Steiny and I.
All right, I give up. I get it. You don't care enough about us to drop us a review or subscribe to Promoter 101. I get it. It's fine. It's fine. Seriously, no. Let's just let it go. We'll talk about something else.
You really don't sound fine, Dan.
Fucking fine, Lucas. Let's just move on and talk about something else.
Jesus, okay. We're done.
Hi, this is Adam Parsons from Siren Artist Management on Promoter 101.
News of the week.
So how about a little news from Mr. W. Luke Pierce?
It's time for News of the Week. Got an update on the sale of Universal Music Group, as private equity firm KKR and China's Tencent are the first possible names swirling around in the acquisition of the piece of Universal Music Group that's so hotly up for grabs. In their first report this week, according to Reuters, KKR and Tencent are the emergent preferred partners. However, in a report a day later, Variety added that John Malone's Liberty Media might also be interested. KKR, of course, had a position in Bertelsmann Group's relaunching of BMG. And Liberty is the giant that owns SiriusXM and now Pandora, plus 35% of Live Nation. So with an entry into the records business, Liberty would have a full vertical of the music industry from records all the way through concerts. Hits Daily Double added in a report that Lucien Grange would play a large role in terms of selecting a partner to come on board. The new suitor is expected to have a more passive position in the leadership of the company. Spotify and Warner Music Group are engaged in a legal battle over the streaming giant's launch in India. This past week, WMG filed an interim injunction to prevent Spotify from using its publishing rights for its upcoming debut in India. A day later, Indian High Court judge essentially paused the legal dispute, asking Spotify to pause an application for statutory licenses while deferring to Warner's application for an injunction. The results were best described in Billboard as sending Warner and Spotify back to their respective corners. Spotify and Warner traded statements, and Spotify claiming that WMG's abusive behavior harmed non-Warner rights holders and prevented their revenue-generating service from launching in the second biggest country in the world. WMG clapped back via a spokesperson statement saying that Spotify's comments yesterday about fair market negotiations were appalling to us, and we're shocked that they would exploit the valuable rights of songwriters without a license. While this plays out in the court of public opinion, it will also remain in the actual high court in India. And for the time being, it looks like Spotify will miss its proposed launch in India. Stay tuned for updates. Finally, some lighter news. The Jonas Brothers back together, releasing new music for the first time in 6 years via Republic. The trio of brothers announced this during James Corden's Carpool Karaoke and also announced they'll be taking over the shows for a 4-night run around the release of their new EP. That's it for News of the Week.
This is Mary Claire Borgelli from Live Nation, Promoter 101, best podcast in the music industry.
It's time to turn the tables. It's time to turn the tables.
Up next, APA's Heath Baumhor is going to turn the tables on Steiny.
Heath, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and now it's your turn to turn the tables on me. What's your question?
All right, Dan, now that you are also a rock star podcaster and in some ways the talent on events, how has it changed your perspective from going from being the promoter to performing live at various locations and being the talent?
It's funny because when people speak at conferences or college campuses, they have this very different form of just getting on the mic and not doing anything. And the podcast is pretty well prepped every week. So me and Luke have learned over time, because we've done a bunch of the live conferences and colleges, what works and what doesn't, just like a comic refining their set, what gets the laugh, what doesn't, too much of this, too little of that. I mean, the genius is we get to edit it and post. So what makes the air is like, oh, that didn't work. We went too long. We talked about that too much, or we didn't have enough of the guests. We should have gotten to the guests quicker. It's like over time, you figure that out.
So just like your touring artists that you're promoting shows for, you're constantly tweaking your approach to best connect with the audience.
Oh, yeah. And over time, it just gets better. You realize, okay, the audience needs this, and then we'll do this in post. And we just played Philadelphia, and we interviewed Jeff Gordon. The show on campus was a full live podcast. And normally when we record the interviews live at conferences, it's just an interview. But on campus, we'll do the full podcast. And you're choreographed to the point where everybody knows when they're coming in. So to see that, it's kind of funny. But we have a very well-written writer.
What do you ask for?
We ask for a 12-pack of High Life. It's not very much, but It's more important, like our tech needs, because we're recording. We need a line out, and we need power, and we need to have a sound check and a line check, because we need to make sure that when we record it, it's very clean. And we've had historical problems with not having great sound come out, and it takes a hard time to clean it up. So you want it to be very clean, but whether you've got your mic or your handhelds or the wireless or the internet connection. So over time, you refine that rider, and you want it to be as easy, as small as possible, because you want them to read it. 30-page riders don't get read. Every show should really have a one-page simple version of the rider. For us, it's one page. I need this. I need a C table. I need, whatever it is. You need to be able to play our MP3 to start the podcast. It's
Craig Newman sung theme song.
Yeah.
I do find myself singing that randomly.
Oh yeah, it gets stuck in your head, right?
It's pretty bad.
But yeah, you get to appreciate a little bit what goes into the craft of building a show and getting it right. And you have that feeling of like pulling off a good show, where you walk off afterwards and everybody's like, "That was great." And you're like, "No, we fucked up the middle part." Or it's like, it wasn't great. You have that, and you know an interview is bad too. Nothing worse than a live interview with a bad guest.
I bet. You're a good talker, though.
Well, you can't save other people, though. You ask somebody a question, and they answer with one word. I did a panel with David Britz and Andrea Johnson and Rick Farrell and Jason Zink and a handful of other people, and they're all amazing with mics in their hand. And then there was another promoter on this panel that was answering with one word, and then he was saying he doesn't want to share that information. So he looked really bad.
There's only so much you can do.
Yeah. And, in most cases when you're doing a panel, you don't pick the panelists. You're told who the panelists are. You're given these people and try to make them look as good as possible. And you try to set everybody up to spike the ball. But when they're just like, no, I don't want to share that information. Why the fuck would you get on a microphone at a learning educational seminar just to say you don't want to share any information?
And what information do you have that is so important that it has to stay confidential?
We were talking about marketing shows, and what I said was, couldn't you take the best 3 marketing plans for the shows that sold the best on your last tour and send that out to everybody on the next leg with your contracts? Like, hey, this is what worked best. Here are the 3 best selling shows on our last year. Here were the ad summaries. And then this promoter said, you can't see them. That's mine. And I thought, how ridiculous is that? By the way, it's the band's, because once you give it to the band, it's theirs, right? You did it. There's no reason the manager couldn't share it. I just think we all come up together, right? It's like we figure out how to sell it. One act is using Google ads somewhere, and it's not in your ad plan when you send it over to marketing at the agency or management. They're going to come back and say, where are your Google dollars? Or where's your Facebook money? Or why is there print? What year are you living in, motherfucker? But that's a very odd thing, So it's like, why can't we all share information? And all of us together build a better industry, so we're all doing better shows.
100%.
So that guy couldn't save. And every once in a while, you have these interviews with these people that just suck on the mic. Early on, we had a promoter or a manager that was really dry too, who's got a very, very successful career. And that's why we only do interviews in person, because I could hear that he was typing. He wasn't engaging. And it was horrible. And he was babbling on for 90 minutes. We took it down to 22, and it was one of our lowest rated interviews ever.
Oh, damn. You get ratings on these?
Oh, yeah.
No, I can't wait to see.
Promoter 101, thanks for turning the tables.
Keep your eyes peeled for Heath to be back with a full interview in just a couple of weeks.
Brian Jonas from High Road Touring, and I am on Promoter 101.
Tweet.
Tweets of the week.
It's Thursday, so let's do it. It's time for some tweets of the week. Let's start here, Dan. When labor comes in 70% under your budget, hashtag shocked but thankful.
Yeah, this never happens. What a great surprise. But hey, keep those surprises coming.
When you learn the manager and the agent have not shared the lack of sales with their artist as soon as you walk into the venue.
The role of disciplining the artist tonight will be played by, me.
When an agent sends avails for a replay date before the current show that is in the market is played, all while skipping unplayed markets.
This is some serious lazy shit. Don't you think, Luke?
Go out there, develop some other markets. Let the world miss you a little bit. You don't have to burn through this one again. That'll wrap it up for some tweets of the week. Make sure you keep up with all the musings, all the ramblings of Dan Steinberg. He's on Twitter, @TheJew.
While you're doing that, call your mother.
Call your mother.
Hello, everybody. This is Jeffrey Fox, president of Fox & Company, and I'm going to be on Promoter 101.
In our featured interview this week, we got the goods. WME Nashville's Braeden Rountree been having an incredible run. Kane Brown running through arenas. Marcus King Band crushing it out there in the amphitheaters. And Granger Smith working his way through the clubs. Welcome to the podcast.
We're in the lovely city of Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm talking to agent from the stars, William Morris's own Braeden Rountree in the house. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Great crib you got out here in the East Nasty.
This is how we roll. The East Nasty.
It's the other side of the river.
You're at this agency that is having an amazing renaissance at the moment. Dare I say, the biggest agency in the world at this moment in time.
Very blessed. Love the company, love the people, love the culture. So
yeah, it seems like right now William Morris can do no wrong globally.
I feel like with how we work together, how we communicate, our passion for not only our clients, but also ourselves, I think that speaks volumes and sort of translate outside the walls. So yeah, we're having a great run, but always kind of looking behind us and trying to operate from that boutique agency mentality, if you will, even though we're clearly not a boutique agency. It's definitely not lost upon us the successes we are having, but also not lost upon us where we could be. So
you're having a great moment in time. You've got some really cool acts that are exploding that you personally handle. I mean, Kane Brown's blowing the fuck up, right?
Yeah. You know, they say that 1% of all artists that move to town will get a record deal. 1% of those artists who get record deals will have a hit of some sort on radio. And then 1% of those acts will make it to the arena status. So, yeah, I mean, just being to the point where he is selling the tickets he is the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. But doing it the way that he has done it, arguably probably the first country artist to break via social media. I mean, he didn't have any original songs and was gaining 150 to 200,000 followers a day on social media. So the first shows we booked on him, he had no original music out. Now that came along, but it's crazy the way it broke, and it's been exciting to follow it over such a short time period.
Okay, and we're in Nashville, and people would expect you to do country. Like, that's the thing, right? But Nashville's so much more now. And you're involved with the Marcus King Band, who, dare I actually say, could be the breakout act in that jam, like space Americana for the next couple of years. Like, that thing is just set to blow the fuck up.
You know, honestly, I got to give a lot of credit to my boy CJ Strock out of the New York office. It's been a blessing having him. Primarily up until that point where I signed Marcus, was doing all country, kind of went on a limb, signed a guy that wasn't in the space that I knew, but, you know, I know how to book shows. And so I said, you're a very talented individual, and I don't know where this is going. And so we did that for a couple of years, and then I asked CJ if he would join the team because, I mean, he's the king of that world, and he graciously said yes, and it's been great working with him on it. But yeah, Marcus is having a fantastic year. The kid's a prodigy, you know, his singing, his songwriting, his guitar playing. He's the kind of person where if he plays a club and there's 50 people there, he'll come back 3 months later and there'll be 500 people there. People just talk about him, and they have to bring people to see him. So yeah, it's fun. You know, a lot of artists love him. He's going out with Stapleton this summer, which was just announced. So he's having a killer year.
How does an artist like that wind up on what's going to be one of the biggest tours of the year? I know you share a hallway with Jay Williams, who is Stapleton's agent, but it can't just be as much as like passing over lunch at Arnold's. Hey, dude, you mind hooking me up with that tour? Because that can't be how that works. Or does it?
I mean, every artist is different on how they come to the point of who they want to take out with them. Some artists kind of solely leave it up to their team. Some artists are very, very hands-on with selection. Chris Stapleton is one of those artists. He's very, very hands-on.
Couldn't even be you like, Jay, hook me up. The artist chose the act.
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, I think Chris and his team listen to Jay a lot. I mean, obviously, Jay has done a fantastic job with Stapleton's career.
Yeah, he's got amazing ears, too.
You could cut off one of his ears and he'd still have the best pair.
Wow, I like that.
You know,
Did you just coin that?
So, maybe trademark 2019. But yeah, I think Jay's a big fan of Marcus, and Jay's great about bringing new talent to any of his acts teams. The last album that Marcus recorded and released was recorded by Dave Cobb at RCA Studio A here. Dave and Stapleton have that kind of relationship where they talk a lot, and a lot of the stuff that Dave brings to him is put in high consideration. So it was a lot of different moving pieces that all led to the opportunity that was given.
You didn't start at William Morris, and you don't just get those jobs, right? That takes a lot of work, and you got to know the business, and you got to be doing something right to get that call. So you had roots in the business before you wound up getting augmented over at William Morris. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my path was probably a little bit different from most people's. Pretty common that most people's first jobs in the industry are in the mailroom. You know, you graduate from college, you get the interview, you start in the mailroom. You're 22, 23 years old. I had graduated from college in Texas and was a music major, got tired of playing music. And so I decided I wanted to work in the music business, but I didn't know anything about it. So I moved to Nashville to go to grad school at Belmont because they had a nighttime program that was a master's program in business, but that I could take music electives. But they said they'd help me get an internship. So I was like, sweet. I'd never even been to Nashville. I just packed up my truck and moved up here. And true to their word, they helped me get an internship right off the bat with a publishing company called Curb Magnatone, which is not in business anymore. But
you bankrupt the company?
Well, they were in the process of selling their catalog when I started there. So my job was basically converting songs from DAT tape, which for those out there that don't know what that is, it's digital audio tape, converting the songs in the catalog from DAT tape to CD, which you had to do in real time. And then once that was done, you would put the CD in the CD-ROM of the computer and upload it to the computer drive and then type in, you know, the song, title, the writers, et cetera, et cetera. So since that was done in real time, the conversion, I actually listened to every song of the catalog. I was just like, this is really interesting what these songs sound like in the original version as opposed to what made it to radio. And because I was listening to all these songs, I was asked to go along to some plugging meetings, some pitch meetings, if you will, with some great A&R folks in town. I kind of quickly realized that not only did I not want to be a song plugger because it's a lot of rejection, I didn't really think I particularly felt I would make it as an A&R person as well. I just felt like those people had such great ears and could hear things so fast to make decisions on what was going to be hit, what wasn't. You know, I'm a young buck in the industry. I didn't know anything. I was like, I don't think I have those ears. So after the internship ended, which was after a few months, I'd gotten offered the opportunity to go work for a full service PR firm called PLA Media. And they were doing publicity, they were doing independent radio promotion, they were doing artist management, and a little bit of booking.
Full service, so happy ending?
For some people, I suppose. Depends on the experience you had, whether it was a happy or a bad ending. But I did that for about a year. And then the guy who sort of ran the management radio promotion side decided he wanted to split off from the person that was running the publicity side. So I had a choice. I could either stay and do publicity or go and continue to do radio promotion and artist management. So I went with the artist management radio promotion side. So we were working with a few acts on like a month-to-month basis. And then one of the acts had kind of gotten discovered by a wealthy guy in Florida. And this guy had always wanted to start a country record label, but didn't know anything about it, and asked this kid if he knew anybody in Nashville that could help him start a label. So turned me and the guy I was working with on to that. And we hatched out a plan to start a record label. And so we got it off the ground.
You're running your own label.
Well, I'm not. I'm in what they would call a coordinator position because I didn't know anything about running a record label. But honestly, nobody really did. But they ended up signing some pretty legit country artists. They did a deal with Travis Tritt, and they ended up doing a deal with George Jones. And so as far as the acts they were signing goes, it was very legit. I just realized after 5 or 6 or 7 months that the label thing wasn't for me. And so I got out of that. And here I am sitting there thinking, okay, I've done a little bit of publishing. I've done a little bit of publicity. I've done a little bit of artist management, done a little radio label thing. I don't really like any of it, but I still have this passion for the music industry. And finally, over drinks one night, a buddy of mine was like, you know, I think you'd be a good agent. You should go work at one of the agencies. I was like, well, which one? He's like, oh, William Morris. They're the best in town. I've got a friend. I'll connect you. And so he did. My resume got submitted. I got the interview and barely got the job. And I say barely because back in those days, you had to do a spelling test, a grammar test, a data entry test, and a typing speed test. Aced the spelling test, aced the data entry, aced the grammar, but you had to type 80 words a minute. and I was not a fast typer at that time. So luckily enough, the HR coordinator who was there at the time really liked me and let me retake the test until I finally got to 80 words a minute. So I barely got the job because of a damn typing test.
Did you have typing in high school? Did you have to take that class?
I didn't even have a computer growing up.
So, William Morrison, how long have you been there now?
It'll be 13 years. In September.
Now, my guess is you didn't start as an agent.
No, it was the mailroom, man. The HR lady at the time tried to talk me out of it because she says, you got this bachelor's degree in business and you have 3.5 years of, fairly credible work experience. You're going to go in the mailroom and you're going to push the mail cart and you're going to wash dishes and you're going to have to run checks to the bank and go to the grocery store and pick up dry cleaning and drop cars off to get washed. Does that sound like something you're interested in? I was like, absolutely. In my mind, this is my last stop before I move back to Texas and become a band director or something like that, right? So I was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm going to give it 110%. I'm going to be the best dishwasher and the best cart pusher and the best grocery store runner you've ever had. That was the mentality I had going into it, is that nothing is beneath me. I'm going to get in here. I'm going to do this. And we'll just see what happens.
So how long were you in the mailroom pushing carts and running to the grocery store and the bank?
About, I'd say 7 months. Because one thing I left out is that before I had accepted the job at William Morris, I'd actually accepted a job as an adjunct professor at MTSU, teaching one night a week, which was on Wednesday nights. And it was like the overview class. I don't remember what they call it, RIM 101. So I had accepted that gig before I'd accepted the William Morris gig. So I told him, I was like, hey, just so you know, I got to leave at 4:30 every Wednesday for the rest of the semester to teach this class. And they're like, that's fine, but we're not going to promote you to an assistant position on a desk until you're done with this teaching class. I said, well, okay, fine. So there were several desks that came available during that quote unquote fall semester, but I wasn't eligible for it. But it all actually panned out to be fine in the end, because the first desk that came available after I was done with the teaching was Barrett Sellers. And Barrett and I had become really good friends by that point. So he got to know me really well and knew about my experience and knew that I was passionate about it. And he kind of let me run with it probably sooner than most agents would, just because he knew me really well. And I think he trusted me. So, yeah, 7 months or so in the mailroom, and then I went to work for Barrett for about 6 months. And then Barry Jeffries' desk came open, and everybody's like, oh, Barry's desk is so difficult, such high volume. All you're doing is loading offers and selling dates. I was like, sweet, sign me up. Nobody else wanted to do it at that time. I said, man, if I can go be on Barry's desk and accomplish that and make him happy, I feel like I can do this job. I worked for Barry for about 2.5 years.
A lot of Oak Ridge Boys dates.
Dude, well, it was just a lot of dates, period. At that time, actually, he was not the agent for Oak Ridge Boys. Paul Moore was, who used to work there, who was one of the co-heads of the office. So when Paul retired, then Barry became the RA for the Oak Ridge Boys. But Barry, as a festival agent, was booking shows of all genres across all offices. So I'd be talking to somebody about Oak Ridge Boys, and in the same sentence also talk about Snoop Dogg.
That's a great package.
Isn't it, though? I feel like that would go over really well.
So you go off of Barry Jeffries' desk and you get promoted to being an agent.
Well, I went to work for Becky Gardner right after Barry's desk. She was a few months away from going on maternity leave with her first child. I felt like I was pretty close to getting promoted. And so they wanted somebody to go work for her that while she was on maternity leave could kind of keep the ship going down the sea, so to speak. And so it's really funny, actually. She went on maternity leave, and about a month into her maternity leave, I got promoted to agent. And so it was at the Christmas party that year. And I'm really excited about getting promoted. And all of a sudden, like, this fear sits in. I was like, oh, my gosh, they're going to have to put somebody else on Becky's desk. And so I called Becky right away. I was like, hey, you never believe this, but I got promoted. I'm really sorry. She's like, what are you apologizing for? You got promoted. Congratulations. I was like, yeah, but I've got to get off your desk. And like, that was the deal, is I was going to be on your desk until you got back. And she's like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. I'm happy for you. I was like, well, thank you. But I was just like really like sad almost that I got promoted and
like,
couldn't finish working on Becky's desk. But she was really great about it. So
now you've been an agent for how long?
I'd say 8 years, 9 almost.
All right, so let's focus for a second on your business style. You're known for being a great hang. People dig hanging out with you. You're a great guy to get a drink with, and your ex seemed to love you for that. Is that part of the business, is being able to like hang in the room and fit in that group thing?
For me, that's just my style. I joke with my wife all the time that people only like me when I'm drinking, which is why I drink so much. And she's like, yeah, whatever. That's not a good excuse.
It's a work thing, honey. Sorry.
People,
shots.
I'm not going to have any career if I don't drink, damn it. Nobody likes me when I'm sober. But I don't know. For me, that's just what works for me, right? I like being in a party crowd and buying drinks for people and telling jokes and laughing and cutting up. That's just my style. You know, I think you and I both know that there are agents out there who are plain as a wall, but are very successful at what they do. You know, I don't think my style is the style that should be emulated by everybody. I think whatever it is that your strengths, go with it. You know, if you're not very entertaining, but you're sharp and you know how to find a great act, then that's what works for you, you know?
If it had to be done by bookwork alone, I'd be fucked.
Or if your success was judged by how tidy your email inbox is, I would not be successful.
Like that. I only want an agent that has a clean email box. Are you OCD or not?
Yeah, I say I have one folder and it's titled inbox. And everything stays in there. About every 6 months, I just delete anything from 6 months back.
He's like, I didn't get to it. Fuck it. They probably don't expect me to get back to them now.
Well, I just think about how organized everybody else is in the office, and that I can't honestly recall one situation where if it's an email that's older than 6 or 7 months old, that somebody's like, well, I need you to produce this email. Actually, we do have a system to go back and look at email archives. But I'm just saying, like, you know, I'll just delete 30,000 emails like on a whim. You know, it's like, you're out of here.
30,000 emails. How many emails do you get a day?
Well, we're in the busy time of year right now, so probably in the 800 to 1,000 email range.
Well, that is an amazing number of emails. That's daily.
Yeah, during this time of year. I mean,
okay, and you're working the phones at the same time, right?
Yes and no.
You realize you just answered that question with both a yes and a no, right?
Yeah, no, because it's, you know, honestly, with me, and this is how I live my life and how I feel about it, very few things are black and white. Most everything is gray matter, you know, where you can explain it one way or another. So I'm probably not on the phone as much as a lot of agents because I handle a lot more business via email and text message. But I respect the phone time, right? I just assume that everybody else is as busy, if not busier than I am. And having a phone conversation every day probably isn't the best resource of your time. Whereas like when we do have a phone call, it's really impactful. And probably we don't talk about a whole lot of business. We just talk about ourselves and our lives and grow our relationship that way. And then the emails are for the short little things. You know, I'm not going to call you and be like, hey, can we have an 80% merch rate? Okay, cool. Thanks. Bye. That's just not my style. Again, going back to what works for you and what doesn't, like I accomplish a lot via email, but I do like being on the phone. It's just I'm not probably going to call you every day like some agents will. But what works for them doesn't work for me, and what works for me doesn't necessarily work for them.
So before I let you go, can you give some advice to the younger people in the business coming up that are trying to have some career longevity?
Usually when I do mentorships with college students or younger associates in our office, their one question is like, you know, how can we get to the point where you are with great acts and seemingly being successful? I was like, you know what? It's all about your network. When you're younger, you've got to be out there hitting the bars and hitting the showcases and constantly meeting people and maintaining those relationships, because those people you meet when you're 22 years old, when you get to be 32 or 35, those are the people that are running the town or the next level of executives. As you and your peers grow, it's less and less about going out to see new acts and discovering them that way as much as it is relying on your network of people to introduce you to what's up and coming and what's hot. Kane came through that way. Marcus King came through that way. Ranger Smith came through that way. I didn't go out and just randomly see him at a showcase, you know. Some of the earlier acts that I signed definitely came by just being out and seeing them on a writer's round or a multi-act, you know, bill or whatever. So, and I think that goes for everybody. As you progress through your career, you rely more and more on your network to figure out what's going to work or not. I mean, that's honestly it, is focus on your network, being a good person generally, becoming a go-to person. I can't tell you how many requests I get a day from people asking for tickets to this and that, but it's okay. I work in the live music industry. I accept that. Doing these favors for people and not necessarily immediately coming back and asking for a favor in return or being like, well, I've never asked you for anything. Why are you asking me for this? Like, it's not about that.
Quid pro quo, motherfucker.
Yeah, man, you know, maybe someday you can help me out with something, but just being a good friend and a good person, maintaining your network, and honestly, not being above anything. Like if you're an up-and-coming person and somebody asks you to take your car to get washed, you do it with a smile on your face. It's going to be the best car wash he's ever had. And leaving the door open for all opportunities. You know, so many times I think we see people come in the industry out of college be like, I'm going to work in A&R. You know how many A&R people work in Nashville? Like 7, maybe 8. I don't know. May actually be 5 by the end of this podcast. I don't know.
Oh, there's probably 40, but there's probably only 7 that can pay their bills.
Yeah, true story. Leaving yourself open to other opportunities and see where they lead you. Those are all kind of the pillars of what I focused on coming up through the ranks. And I don't know. I think it's worked.
Dude, thank you so much for taking time and being on the
dude,
podcast.
hell yeah, man. It's an honor. So thank you.
Hard not to be a Braeden fan. You really have to try not to be because he is just such a great guy. Really stoked for all of his success. Much earned.
Hey everyone, this is Cindy Leinott,
Kira Finkenberg,
Patty Ann Tarleton,
Whitney Bond,
Amy Miller,
John Holliday,
Marcy Allen,
Paula Palazzo,
Becca Leifer,
and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
And I'm on Promoter 101.
That's it. That's the end of it. We're done with episode 129 of Promoter 101. Thank you to all of our listeners. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Drop a review. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. You can email Dan and I, Steiny at promoter101.net. It doesn't cost anything.
Hey, we'll be back Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's 6 p.m. Central Standard and 7 p.m. on the coast. Didn't need Google to figure that out this time, Luke.
That's right, Dan. However you're counting down the hours, Monday can't come soon enough because our very special guest is one of the biggest production managers in the world. His credits read like the Hall of Fame themselves, AC/DC, Madonna, U2, the Stones, and of course I'm talking about the one, the only Jake Berry right here on Promoter 101 next Monday.
And Dan Glick will be here from Evenco to share one of his favorite stories about zinking my first trip to Montreal. And I got to tell you, we kind of look like horses' asses on this one. But Dan loves the story, and what the hell, we share what our guests have to give because, well, I'm a victim.
You're a victim, Dan?
No, I'm more of an idiot when the story comes out. But you know what? It's a fun, playful story, and any idiot could make this mistake. At least I'm hoping other idiots made this mistake.
Well, can't wait to hear it. Between now and Monday, we're wishing you a weekend of sold-out shows. Cheers.
Call your mom.
I'm Ralph James from UTA, and you are listening to Promoter 101.
Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da.